So for the majority of people, being an auditor is not a long-term career. And that's why after 3 or 4 years, or once you qualify at one of the big 4 firms, around 66% of people actually leave for other opportunities. One of the most sought after or most popular exit opportunities is moving from audit into management consulting. And it's actually a switch I've done recently myself. So I have been working at PwC for the past 4 years, but I have actually left the firm and joined a boutique consultancy. I'll talk more about that and the reasons why and various other bits in another video. But in this video today, we're going to be focusing on how you can make the move from audit into consulting. I'll also be taking you through how I leveraged all the skills, knowledge, and experience I gained in audit to secure a job in consulting. So let's dive in. Alongside the video, I have also created a Google Sheet, which includes a summary of the content we'll go through in the video and some additional hints and tips. There'll be a link down in the description, and there might be a card that pops up maybe here or over here. I recommend you click that link, check it out, and alongside obviously watching the video. Anyway, let's go. Audit is obviously all about providing independent, objective assurance over the true and fairness or accuracy of the financial statements. You're looking at financial transactions that happened over the past year. For example, the P&L will be looking at the income and expenses over the past 12 months, and the balance sheet will be looking at movements between 12 months ago and the current date. Consulting is obviously more forward-looking. You're identifying the current issues based on analysing past data, come up with recommendations to improve the company going forward. Say there's a company that is in a particularly tough financial position at the moment. The auditors will basically just come in and go, yep, we can confirm you're in a tough financial position based on reviewing your accounts. This is how much cash you have, this is how much debt you have. We confirm you're pretty stuffed. Consultants will be hired and their work will be around, well, how can you turn that company around? How can you improve profitability, reduce costs, or maybe improve your top line in terms of revenue? Audit, if you're over a certain size, is obviously a legal requirement for companies to go to. It's really prescriptive in terms of the procedures or activities or overarching objective to be performed. Legislation in regards to this, you've got the Companies Act, there's various regulations, auditing standards that you have to follow as an auditor, you've got accounting standards. Because of these various kind of frameworks in place, it's very prescriptive. There isn't really much room for creativity, and obviously creative accounting is typically a bad thing. It's quite repetitive work. There isn't really too much change between clients, whereas consulting obviously isn't governed by any standards strict as the accounting and auditing world. And because it's not as prescriptive, you can really be doing consulting engagements on any area of business. You're using a wider range of skill sets. Each engagement is fairly unique and can be a lot more interesting because you're doing a lot more diverse activities. There's quite a few stark differences, and because there's quite a few stark differences, there's obviously a difference in skill set required. In terms of how I managed to secure my consulting opportunity, I'd really boil it down to 3 key areas. We'll go into each of those in a bit more detail. Before we do so, I just wanted to highlight an app that I've been using over the past couple of months and have kindly decided to sponsor today's video. As part of operating my business and to support friends and family, I have to do a lot of money transfers. Anyone that's used the traditional bank, this is a painful process. It's not easy to follow, it's not easy to send, it's full of hassle, full of fees, and the exchange rates you get are typically not the market exchange rates. Over the past couple of months, I've been looking for solutions and I found Paysend. It's fast, affordable, and extremely easy to use. Any fees involved are shown up front. The FX rate you get given is a lot closer to the actual market rate. It offers the same level of security compared to your bank, and there's 24/7 support. Don't just take my word for it. If we look at Trustpilot, you can see here it's got just under 27,000 reviews, rating it 4.7 out of 5. So say for example I wanted to send some money to a friend in Australia. Type in Australia. I can then choose obviously to send to a bank account or to a card. The best part about this is that it allows me to see the rates first. So for example, if I wanted to send £100, you can see here it shows me there's no fee on this particular transaction and it shows the day's rates. Press continue. I'm not going to show you the bank account information because, well, you don't need to see that and I don't want you to see that. Tap the send button. Look at that, and it's all done. It took less than 30 seconds end to end. They have also very kindly given you guys an exclusive offer. So if you use the code JAMES3, you will get free transactions while sending money abroad. It's not going to cost you anything. It gives you an excellent opportunity to try it out. Click the link down in the description, use the exclusive offer, and honestly, I guarantee you'll love it. So obviously, to be able to successfully get a consulting job, you need to demonstrate the consulting mindset. And there's a couple of attributes that make an effective consultant, and it's all about effective relationship building, stakeholder management, being able to draw insights and analysis out of data, and at the same time obviously being good at communication, sales and various bits like that. And a lot of the skills and knowledge and experience you've gained in audit are directly transferable across into consulting and into those areas. So for example, if you think about relationship building, throughout the audit process, through planning, the controls assessment, the substantive tests, you're building relationships with a variety of client contacts, not only within the accounting department themselves, but you might be speaking to people, for example, within IT teams, HR teams, and various other operational roles. The role of an auditor, or an effective auditor at least, is someone that is able to build effective relationships with the client and obviously gain the information they need. And it's a really tricky thing to do for auditors because fundamentally, being honest, the client doesn't want auditors there. No one wants to speak to the auditors. No one really wants to speak to you. So it is a bit of a skill and an art to sit down with someone, try and win them over to obviously the audit process and why you need this particular bit of information, and then get information from them. In the consulting world, it's a lot easier to build a relationship because obviously you're there to help them and they're more engaged in the process. But those skills and knowledge you gained from the audit world, from potentially managing difficult conversations or difficult client contacts because they don't want you there, is immensely useful. So think about ways in the application and in the interview process you can leverage or demonstrate how you build effective relationships. Secondly, obviously, consultants are all about analysing a current situation, drawing insight from that data, and proposing recommendations on how to improve in the future. And this, in a way, is similar to the audit process. As you're going through planning and the controls assessment, as part of the controls piece, you're identifying obviously weaknesses in the company's current operations or company's current processes that may impact the financial statements. And this is similar to what consultants do. They try and identify issues or areas in the operations and the impacts they have. So when you're going through the application process, while you might not have any direct consulting experience, you can leverage your knowledge or experience in that controls identification process. Because typically how it works is you'll do walkthroughs or pieces like that, you'll identify weaknesses in the controls, you'll make recommendations which are provided in a report to the board of directors. And you can spin that experience into obviously a similar consulting framework in terms of you identified issues and you made recommendations on how they can be improved going forward. Similarly, in terms of the critical analysis, part of an auditor's role is making sure obviously the financial statements are free from material misstatement and provide a true and fair view. Part of that is obviously analysing a lot of large data sets for unusual patterns or anything else that might seem suspicious or out of the ordinary. And once again, you can obviously spin that experience into your kind of critical thinking and analysis. Part of the audit engagement, particularly as obviously you progress to a senior associate or a junior manager or even a manager, is obviously stakeholder management. You're managing not only external stakeholders like the client at a variety of different levels, but you're also managing internal stakeholders, whether that's coaching your associates, leading your senior associates, or obviously updating your senior managers, directors or partners on the status or progress of the audit. And being able to juggle these various or manage these various stakeholders while making sure various work streams are progressing is critical, not only obviously for audit but consulting. In particular, you'll be working with large teams and they'll be working on various different work streams, so you've got to make sure you keep on top of everyone, and so demonstrating your project management ability is also going to be key. So throughout obviously your day-to-day audit role, there's a variety of different skills and experiences that you can demonstrate that tick those consulting kind of mindsets about effective relationship building, stakeholder management, communication, and obviously being able to to analyze and critically think about drawing insight from data. So alongside your external client work, you should always be looking to get involved in some internal opportunities as well. And that could be a range of different things. So for example, for myself at PwC, I was involved in the sales team, which meant I was involved in helping win new clients for our audit practice, being involved in writing the proposals and presenting to potential new clients, and also looking at ways in which we could make the kind of sales process more efficient. Aside from joining groups and initiatives like this, while working at the Big Four, if you're already working at the Big Four, you probably know that there's a hell of a lot of processes and day-to-day activities that are very bureaucratic, very inefficient, and are very much outdated. And so it's really about taking an active role in identifying improvements to those processes. So for example, if there's a really bureaucratic, inefficient process that takes up a hell of a lot of time, it's not just accepting it, coming up with an idea with, okay, this process is pretty crap, how could I go about improving it? While at PwC, the way that budgets were managed was extremely inefficient. It took you so long to gain any valuable insight about how your project was performing that a couple of us raised the issue and we recommended quite a few tools that are out on the market at the moment that could be used. And we ran a couple of trials, we gained some feedback and found a process that worked a lot better. So I recommend you get involved in a number of initiatives internally, whether that be sales teams, networking, or just actively looking around at how particular processes and stuff like that can be improved. Leverage recruiters as much as possible. After 3 or 4 years at the Big Four, or when you change your status on LinkedIn to say that you're qualified, you'll get a ton of messages from a variety of recruiters. Now, most companies outsource obviously their recruiting to recruiting firms, and in turn recruiting firms will get a commission obviously for successfully placing a candidate at the company. Now, it's in the recruiting firm's interest to obviously place good candidates with the company, and you'll find 9 times out of 10 that these recruiters are actually very willing to help you with your application and your CV, and to demonstrate and highlight and draw out the skills and experience that you've had within audit. A lot of people are obviously making the move from audit into consulting, and obviously because of that, a lot of recruiters have worked with individuals and they know the skills and mindsets you can gain from audit and how those individuals can be successful consultants. So when you're going through the process, I wouldn't necessarily always directly apply through consulting websites. I would try and go through opportunities through recruiters as much as possible. You can leverage a hell of a lot of their experience in terms of how to make your application stand out. Now obviously they're not going to write your application for you, but they will give you tons of advice based on their experience of what successful candidates have done and how you can really tailor your CV. So work with recruiters as much as you can. So in terms of your routes from audit into consulting, there's a number of different routes or paths you can take. You can go down the internal option. There's 2 methods for this. You can go the formalized way, which is following the transfer window every year or maybe even twice a year. At the Big Four firms, they will basically open up internal transfers between departments. So for example, if you're in audit, the firm will open up applications for you to move into maybe tax, corporate finance or consulting, and you have to follow kind of a standard application process. It is a bit more streamlined compared to joining as an external hire, but you'll still have to submit a CV, an application, go through a series of interviews, and that's very much a structured, kind of rigid approach. But it is really competitive, and those individuals that have demonstrated higher performance in the feedback and moderation cycles within audits will be given preference to move out. The other way you can move internally is through kind of more unofficial route, is via networking, leveraging the network you have to determine if there's any other opportunities within the consulting department to move into. Network with partners or directors and in the consulting department to see if there's any opportunities to move across, because fundamentally obviously partners own the business. If you demonstrate a willingness to obviously move or transfer into the department and how you can bring value to the department, they can make obviously opportunities open up for you. If you decide you want a complete shift, you have the external route, or leaving your current Big Four firm and joining another company, whether that's McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting Group, or one of the boutique firms. Now this is obviously going to be, in terms of the application process, slightly longer because you're joining a brand new company. You will probably have to do CV, an application, and interviews, maybe some online tests, and like a presentation or something like that. So it can take longer. Me personally, like I said at the start, I've actually recently left PwC and I decided to join a complete new firm or a boutique consultancy, and the reason for that is I just wanted a complete change in terms of culture, and I preferred the specialism that the boutique consultancy had compared to the more kind of broader consulting offering of the Big Four. It really depends, if you're really enjoying the culture of the Big Four firm you're at and you want to just try something else, you want to try something new, move from audit to consulting, it is lower risk because you know how the company operates, you know the company's style, the company's culture. But if you're up for trying something completely new, I'd recommend you try a brand new firm. So in summary, you can obviously, there's a variety of different routes you can go into consulting. You can either do that internal transfer window, you can do some unofficial networking to secure an internal transfer, or you can look at actually leaving your current firm and joining another firm. So hopefully you found that video useful. We've gone through obviously the key differences between audit and consulting, the day-to-day role, the various routes you can take to make the transition from audit to consulting, and obviously my 3 top tips on how I secured my consulting role. Check out the Google link, which should be linked below, or there might be a thing that pops up around here. That goes into a hell of a lot more detail on how you can make the transition from audit to consulting and include some additional hints and tips. Anyway, until next time, see you soon.